a guest this evening, or this afternoon, or this morning, depending on where you are in the world. Tertius Van Eeden is the CEO of a company called Print on Demand. You can't get more a closer match between the name and the function than that. And our Print on Demand is a printing company based in the Western Cape. Trish and I have visited the premises, and we were highly impressed with the technology installed there and with the level of professionalism of everyone that we met. And we have no hesitation in recommending the company as a possible option for indie authors. That is to say, writers who have become impatient with traditional publishing or who resent the tiny rewards that traditional publishing offers writers. And that, by the way, is an answer to Elizabeth Staines' question. She wrote, "I would like to know what an indie author is." The term seems to pop up everywhere nowadays. Well, it tends to pop up everywhere nowadays, Elizabeth, because a revolution is taking place in the publishing industry around the world, and no less in South Africa than anywhere else, in fact, as indie authors take control of their own books. Now, this involves transforming themselves into entrepreneurs, which can be an uncomfortable prospect for many people, but entrepreneurs who not only write their own books, but then oversee the process of having them printed or sold as digital versions on the internet. Now, by the way, Jax Howie asked how POD, that is print on demand, and All About Writing are linked. And the short answer is we're not linked, although we are using print on demand services for a publishing novel, a publishing project we're launching. And I can actually show you what I mean by that. This is a book that we are publishing at the moment, which is a small collection of some of the blogs that I've written over the years for my Monday Motivation series. So this is the proof copy that Print on Demand gave us. And this is the print copy of a British printing company called Bookvault, which I believe Print on Demand in the Western Cape is talking to at the moment about cooperative projects. All right, so we've asked Tertius today to begin with a presentation on his company. Remember that a generation ago and less, if a writer wanted to publish his or her own work, they'd have to take a gigantic risk and cough up whatever it took to print 250 or 500 or 1,000 copies of their book and then to sell them. But they'd be out by thousands or tens of thousands of rand before a single rand started coming in. But print on demand enables us to do just that, to print when we need the book. When we sell a copy of our fabulous novel or memoir, we instruct Tertius and his team to print just one copy of it for our fabulous new reader at a cost that is entirely doable. Okay, then, Tertius begins with his presentation, and then I'll ask him to answer the questions you've sent in. I've grouped these questions in some sort of sensible way, I hope. If I can add something to the answers, I'll butt in and do so. If I can't, I won't. So let's go. It's over to you, Tertius.
Awesome. Richard, first of all, thank you to you, Trish, and your company, All About Writing, giving me the opportunity to speak to your customers, clients online this evening, this morning. Heard that you mentioned morning, evening, and afternoon. So maybe let's just first start off and try and establish in what region is our indie authors today. Maybe in the chat, if we can just drop a line. Are you guys from Cape Town, Joburg, surrounding areas in South Africa, or are you guys abroad? We've got Italy, Joburg, Johannesburg, Cape Town, East London, Knysna, West Coast. All right, so we've got a variety of indie authors all around South Africa. So that excites me, guys. And I will tell you why, because just before we started, I've asked Richard if he knows how many ISBN numbers were registered in 2023. And it was a remarkable 2.2 million ISBN numbers were registered last year. So that's titles with ISBN numbers. That's not even titles that weren't even registered with an ISBN number. So I'm going to start off my presentation. You guys give me a second. So I think you guys can all see my screen. All right. So first of all, my presentation is going to be divided into four sections. First of all, I'm going to speak about the company's vision, mission, values. Then I'm going to move over to what we believe the 4 self-publisher problems might be. The third section will be the opportunities. And then the fourth one is the global reach and your book's possibilities and the offering that Print on Demand offers for the indie publishers and also the general market. So first of all, I just want to start with myself. My name is Tertius Van Eeden. I'm the CEO of Print on Demand. I started this organization 9 years ago. And when I started it, the vision at that moment was, how do we give individual writers an opportunity to take their manuscript in a book form and potentially earn money out of that? I think the challenge that we have in the South African and even the global market is that there's a handful of publishers at the end of the day that decides whose manuscripts gets to see the light. Yes, in their own way, that's their business and their model and it works for them. But I think what I've realized especially in my business career is that you do not know whose story will impact you the most. So if you come and visit me at Print on Demand and you walk into my boardroom, you'll see a lot of pictures on the walls. And the pictures on the walls is the guys that inspired me, whose books I've read. And I call them my mentors. And likewise for you guys, there will always be a story that you want to tell and maybe someone's life that you could impact. And we at Print on Demand want to make that opportunity or give you that opportunity for your manuscript to see the light. So fast forward 9 years or 8 years later, our vision has changed slightly, and the vision has changed to how do we give customers around the world access to new markets on demand. I think all of you would agree with, especially with technology. I saw now when I asked the question where you guys are from, I saw Italy come up as one of the countries. And it just shows us that by virtue of technology, we could all share this webinar, spend time together. And the same for books. You can be a South African indie author and you can publish your title in South Africa, but nothing stops you from making your book internationally available. So the mission that we got is that we want to enable every customer to scale faster, and we're going to do that by combining technology, e-commerce, and distribution. And I think later in my presentation, you guys will understand exactly what I mean by the technology, the e-commerce, and the distribution of things. So imagine you have a world where your books can be available globally in over 40,000 e-commerce stores and libraries. Your book business, your title is on autopilot, meaning that you will receive royalties for your book without lifting a finger. Earn royalties, like I said, before spending money on printed books. No more stock holding and predictable sales. I think the biggest challenge that we see in printing of books is how many copies do I print to make my numbers work, essentially, and that's a good question. And no more or expensive transport costs. And I think when were putting this presentation together, that's really what I was thinking about. If I was an indie author and a self-publisher, these things would be a question that I have. So the 4 self-publisher problems that I think we have is that that some of you, as soon as you write your manuscript, you sit with a situation as to where to from here. I've now wrote my manuscript for a couple of months, and I do believe, and I've seen it with many customers that we've worked with before, is that most of them feel that all of or their books will be bestsellers. It's like I said to Richard earlier, it's like every dad will think that his son is the next racehorse. And that I put myself into that picture also. So I think when you put your manuscript together, there will be questions like, what's the next process? Cover design, layout. Do my book need an ISBN number? And must I register an ISBN number? And do I need a barcode? Is it needed for professional proofreading and editing? Do I do bulk print up front? So the next question is the total cost of print volume up front and without any agreed sales. So a lot of times we get some self-publishers that come and sit with us and say, look here, we estimate that we're going to sell 100 to 250 or 500 or even 1,000 books, and give us costings on those numbers. And I see that as a potential problem that an indie publisher might have. The next question is managing a book's inventory can be a nightmare. So now you decided to produce 250 to 500 books. And it comes down to, where do I store my books? Do I put it in the garage? Do I take out additional storing space? And what if I've produced 500 books and I realize that there's a mistake in the books? What do I then do with the copies that I've produced? And then I think the 4th challenge or problem that I think that indie authors and self-publishers sit with is distribution is expensive and it might take forever, especially if we think of a global network. So we believe that there must definitely be a better way to do things. And the opportunity is to partner with Print on Demand. And the reason why I say that is that we at Print on Demand assist you with every step of your publishing journey. Though we're not a publishing company, we only assist with your publishing needs. And one of those assistance that we give is with the actual book cover layout and design, and also the text layout and design. So we offer a full circle typographical services. And I've had an opportunity to do a talk at the Fiery Fest last year. And an example that I made is this book, What Men Knows About Women. That book is arguably one of the most sold books globally. And the funny thing about that book is when you look at the cover is nicely designed, it's attractive, it's appealing to the eye. But as soon as you open the book, it's all blank. And I think that all the ladies on call most probably this evening would agree that men don't really know a lot about women. But yet again, I think in South African context, that book is sold for close to, I think it was just under $100 for a complete blank book with no text inside of it. So the beauty of that is that I'm a firm believer that you buy with your eyes. I do know that there's an old saying that say that don't judge a book by its cover. However, an appealing cover do help you to sell a book. So we at Print on Demand give a full circle design services to our clients. And then the question about volume book production versus book of one solution, and maybe let me just talk about the two different printing terms. So volume book production, we all know that if you want to produce anything from 100 to 2,000 books, that's volume book production. Book of one solution or book of one production is really, it's what the name states. It's how do one produce one book of it at a time. So we at Print on Demand have invested in a lot of technology to make that happen, where as soon as orders comes down our network, we produce a book at a time for various customers, various e-commerce platforms, but it is only one book at a time. So I think the beauty of this is that you as the indie author need to decide in your strategy exactly, are we going to produce volume books where the unit price is slightly cheaper, or are we going to go with a solution of producing one book at a time? Yes, the unit cost is a bit more expensive because we only produce one book at a time. But the beauty of that solution is that you do not have any additional overheads like storage or capital outlays of 500 to 1,000 books, where you're going to make a dent in your cash. So that's the two options there. And the nice thing about Book of One is that you hold your book's copyright. No one else interferes with the copyright of that books. You earn larger royalties if you sell your books onto the e-commerce websites. And you also earn royalties upfront without spending any print cost. I think that's the beauty of it. Yes, there's going to be an upload fee to have your book listed on the e-commerce websites, but that's an annual fee. But once that book is loaded, your customer places an order for a book, and based on the royalties, you earn that royalties without you physically need to part with any money. And then your book gets produced on demand. We in our facility like to use a 48-hour turnaround, depending on the volume of the book. But generally speaking, for a Book of One solution, that's within 48 hours that we produce one book and ship it off. And then again, we give a local and global distribution to over 40,000 e-commerce stores and libraries globally. Also at Print on Demand, we offer ebook and audiobook conversions, and the ebook and audiobook division for us was really something that was born out of COVID. We all know that we were in serious lockdown at the beginning, and I was sitting with the issue at that moment. How do we still give our authors the opportunity to get their books internationally available? We then created a studio, and I'm sitting here in the studio tonight, created a studio where we do audiobook recordings, where we get professional voiceover artists in, and we record books, and we then distribute it on all the international audiobook platforms. And the same is ebook conversions. And also we'll manage the ebook conversions internally. Again, there's two different ebook conversions. You can have your basic or your static conversion, or you can have a reflowable conversion where you could potentially add hyperlinks in your ebook also. And then I think one of the big challenges that I've seen that a lot of these self-publishers and authors are sitting with is that especially when you're in South Africa, you're only bound to the borders of South Africa. So now you print a book within South Africa and you need to ship it off. Courier cost becomes very expensive. We know what the fuel cost has done in recent years, in the last 2 years. And we have decided to reach out to a global network. And within this global network, we have established print relationships in all the major countries. So if you have a client that's sitting in Australia and would like to order your book, they can go onto their local e-commerce website and they could potentially find your book there, place an order. That book then gets printed at the closest printer to that end destination. Print the book, and then it gets delivered within 3 to 5 days. So you can imagine if we had to produce those books within South Africa and we had to fly the books into the international market, the cost aligned to that shipping is just absorbent. And then also the time delay that you got. And with this international network and partnerships that we've created, like I said, your books is now available in all the major e-commerce stores, Amazon's, Barnes and Nobles, only to name a few. Essentially, you as the indie author also stay in full control of your manuscript or your book. There's a contract that gets signed between the author and Print on Demand, where we make it quite clear that the control and the ownership of that book is yours. You can decide when the book gets removed, it gets removed, and you have the rights to that. We like to believe that there's uncompromised quality. And the reason why I can say that is because I had an opportunity to go and visit some of these print plants globally. A majority of these companies that's linked into the network procured the same equipment. And by doing that, the color profiles is the same. The paper we use is similar. So the end result, pretty much what you would see when we print a book, is what you will get from any of our global partners. The royalties, I'll give you guys an example how the royalties works. So Print on Demand, ultimately, like Richard said, we're a print company. So we interested in the actual print cost of a book. We then partner locally with a company called Takealot, of which you guys are aware. So Takealot got their platform fee, and then there is a courier cost that they put to each book, and then there's a small little bank fee that's added. So to give you guys just simple numbers, as if the book is, you as the indie author or the publisher then decides what's the selling price. So if you set your selling price at 150 Rand, just to make numbers simple, and Print on Demand cost for that book is going to be 45 Rand, and Takealot puts their fees onto it, that's potentially another 55 Rand. You then, at the end of the day, if you sell the book for 150 Rand, will walk home with a healthy royalty of 45 Rand. And I think for you guys that have spent some time to look at what the bigger publishers offer in the market, that's anything between a 9 to a 12, 13% royalty that you will get from partnering with a bigger publisher. Yes, there is pros and cons working with publishers. Like I said, we're not a publishing company. We do assist publishers and self-publishers, but the beauty of a bigger publisher, again, is that they assist you with the marketing and to get your book into a global network also. We have a full dedicated support team in print on demand that assist with volume print and also with short run book production, book of one. And right at the bottom, you will see there's a web link that's called www.bookofonline.com/login. And I encourage all of you guys on call today, if you have a manuscript and you got a book laid out already, you can visit the website and you can upload your book onto a local platform and onto the international platform by using that one link. And that one link will assist you in guiding you, setting your royalties. You will see what your royalty percentage would be that you will get paid out. Like I said, you can select if you want to be on a local South African distribution network only, or do you want to partake in a global distribution network also. Those ones is all available on that. You'll sign your contracts online or by a click of a button. So what's Print on Demand's offering? So currently we assist publishers with their manuscript design and let's call it publishing of their book. And publishing, I mean, get the book print ready, okay? Then it's up to you as the client to decide if you want to produce volume print, short run print, or book of one. So volume print we've touched on. Short run print is anything from 10 books to 500 books. And then book of one we've discussed now is where we produce one book at a time. And we sell that on our distribution network through Takealot. We are busy with Amazon currently. And then there's two larger big book wholesalers in South Africa that we're also busy discussing the book of one. Distribution, I'm happy to announce, and this slide I've created last year. We got the distribution side of the business sorted. We can now distribute globally, as I said previously, in over 40,000 e-commerce stores and libraries globally. It's trial, it's tested. We've seen some success stories out of this, where one of our self-publishers published an Afrikaans and an English book, has sold over 4,500 books already globally by using the distribution network that we got. And then I said to Trish, just before we started the presentation, the exciting thing for us is that hopefully towards the third quarter this year, we'll be able to assist authors with their sales and marketing of the actual books also. It is not something that we as a company offer at this moment, but it's definitely something that latter side of this year, we will be able to give some guidance and assistance with. And then also, what's nice is that at Print on Demand, as soon as you have a book launch, we don't just print the actual books for you and send it off to you, but we also do assist you if you need any branding done for your book launch. If there's roll-up banners that's needed, posters that you need for your new book launch, flyers that you want to distribute, bookmarks, if you want to put bookmarks in your book as a little leave behind. And potentially what we've seen work well is that some of our clients at the local distribution platform Takealot on there, and for international purposes, they add Amazon's information on there. So as soon as they discuss their book with fellow friends and family, they have a reference point where they can point their audience to, and it just makes the book sales of their book so much easier. So that's also something that we assist with. And Richard, I think that's in a nutshell. I know I've went quickly over the services and the challenges that we feel. But I think what I like about these webinars is more the questions that comes from the authors, where we can see what's the challenges that they face with, and potentially the assistance that we could give.
Okay, that's great. So we are going to move straight into the question and answer phase of this. Do you want to take down your shared screen, Tertius?
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, you said that was in a nutshell. It was a pretty big nut. I've learned a lot more about your company during that presentation than I knew before. So I hope that other people share that feeling. I wanted to start with a number of nuts and bolts questions, some of which you've already answered in your presentation. And we'll begin with a series of short practical questions from Douglas. If you wouldn't mind reading out each of his questions before you answer it, but skip over those questions that you feel you've already answered in your presentation, Tertius.
Okay, perfect, Richard. Or maybe I'll just skim over it just again for some context.
Okay.
So Douglas posted 6 questions to us, and the first question that he got for us are discounts offered for first-time authors who use your services for the first time? So Douglas, my answer will be yes, but what I do suggest is that my team set up an exploratory call, especially my designer, because it's important for us to understand exactly what's needed, because in some aspects, and you guys, and I didn't post the last slide, but at the end of this recording, or at this end of this webinar, I will give you guys a slide with a promotion code where we give the first 50 authors an opportunity, as soon as their books is ready for production, a free upload onto Takealot, free upload and distribution onto Takealot. So there already is a 650 Rand saving that we offer for first-time authors. But it's definitely something that we like to engage with to really understand what's needed, and then we could potentially work in the discounts. Are marketing and advertising services available? Is question number 2. Unfortunately, Douglas, at this moment, no. But we could potentially share some documents that the team got with highlighted points where you could potentially start off at this moment. And then when we're ready, Q3, we could potentially just engage again and see how we potentially can assist you going forward.
Can I just butt in there, Tertius?
Yes.
We've had a number of questions about marketing,
Yeah.
and it's such an important question with such a wide range of answers that we've decided to hold a separate webinar on marketing your indie published books.
Yeah.
So keep your eye on All About Writing's emails, and we'll let you know when that webinar is scheduled for.
Then, Douglas, point number 3, what kind of pricings do you offer? Does the cost go down based on higher volume? So traditional printing, yes, the higher your production run, the cheaper your unit price. And I see this question comes up a lot in the South African context, is that especially some of these larger, let's call it publishers, they like to drive a lower unit price, for lack of a better word. But I think the challenge that you then sit with is that you have now laid out an extensive amount of capital to pay for these books, but yet again, your forecast might be wrong. But to answer your question in short, yes, the more you print, the cheaper your unit price. And the kind of pricings that we offer, again, that question is big because we have publishing services that we offer. So that is all about cover design, layout, proofread, editing, ISBN, registration, and barcode generation. Then it comes down to the local and international upload costs. So Douglas, I'm more than happy if you reach out to me afterwards via email. I could potentially share some of these costs with you. Or Richard, we can maybe have a discussion how we could put these costs down, and potentially you can email it out to the list.
Sure.
Then question number 4, what kind of book binding do you offer? So again, Douglas, there we need to look at the local market and the international market. Unfortunately, for the international market, they only offer a PUR binding and case binding at this moment through our international print partners. However, for the South African market, we offer case bound PUR, wiro, spiral, saddle stitch. So all the various book binding services we offer. And then question number 5, what kind of art and design service do you offer? So we have a full design team within Print on Demand. So we offer from CI design, corporate identity with a proper CI manual in place, right down to your book cover design and layout. So it's a full spectrum design services, and we also offer within this proofreading, editing services also. Then Douglas asked, point number 6, do you offer reruns, reprints? Are these cheaper than initial runs? Yes, we do offer reruns, reprints. As soon as you engage with Print on Demand and we print your books, your artwork generally will stay on our server, unless you ask us to remove the artwork. However, from another production run, I won't say that there's a cheaper unit price. And the reason why I say that, if you look at conventional litho printing, usually the guys would have created plates, and those plates get stored. So a certain portion of the production cost is covered with the rerun. However, with us at Print on Demand, we print straight from the actual artwork manuscript. So there's no plate cost or any cost up front that would have contributed to a cost saving. However, we would like to believe that the products and the services that we offer, Douglas, will be of good value for you.
Okay.
Richard.
Graham has also got a very practical question. Can Print on Demand print larger format, hardbound coffee table books to the highest technical standards?
So Graham, good question. Yes, we can produce that at Print on Demand, and we have done various coffee table books at Print on Demand. Maybe one thing that I do need to just point out, we are a fully digital operated organization. We do not have any lithographical machines. However, these days, with the latest technologies that we got, Graham, you can't really tell without looking through an eyeglass what is digital versus litho. I think it's good to point out that when it comes down to the coffee table books, especially if you want to produce your larger books, let's call it A4 landscape and bigger, I would suggest, especially when it comes to durability, that you look at thread sewing. And then digital does become challenging, especially on the size constraint that digital got. However, the technology that we have, we can print up to a 1.3 meter, 1.2 meter sheet length. So we could definitely be able to produce that. And part of that question, Richard, I think Graham also asked, is there various paper stocks available,
Yeah.
binding, dust jackets, embossing? So yes, all of that we do offer at Print on Demand. So Graham, again, I'm more than happy if you reach out to the team for us to assist. I think it's important, especially if you want to do one-off copies when it comes to these coffee table books, especially when you do premium services like your embossing and your foiling. It becomes an expensive exercise only because that type of technology is technology that's already in the market for many years, where you need to take a standard cylinder machine and a embossing block and really emboss the image out of the paper. Thanks, Richard.
Okay. So Marilyn has a very specific question about specialist areas of publishing, like non-fiction books aimed at schoolgoers on subjects like maths and English. And then she adds a question about copyright. Who is responsible for ensuring that the author owns the copyright to the book she's asking to print, or perhaps does print on demand play any role in protecting the copyright? Won't you talk about sort of technical books on the one hand and copyright on the other hand?
Marilyn, good question, Richard. I'll be the first one to say that I'm no specialist when it comes in copywriting. What I do know is that in South Africa, we already sit with a situation, and I think a lot of the authors on call know that the government is trying to almost remove copyright out of books. However, Marilyn, for me and my understanding is, as long as you got your copyright page inside your book, you are protected by those laws that no one is allowed to reproduce your book without making contact with you. I've heard a lot of times within the print industry, not just at Print on Demand, but other print companies, where clients will phone in and say they would like a book to be printed. One quotes for the book, and as soon as you receive the artwork, you could clearly see that that's a scanned image of a book. And if the copyright page is in there, unfortunately, Print on Demand do not partake in reproducing those materials. And we then reach back out to the individuals that they get the necessary documentation to prove that they potentially are allowed to reproduce that book. So in short, Marilyn, and I would suggest that include the copyright inside your books. And that's not just for non-fiction, that goes for every book. I would just put a copyright page inside the book so that you are protected by that. But I'll make a note of it and potentially get some more information. I know last year at the Fiery Festival, we had a speaker that spoke about the whole copyright. I will maybe get more information and I'll pass it on to you.
Tertius, I'm just picking up on a couple of questions that are appearing on the chat. Somebody asks, those 40,000 online retailers and stores, the question is, do they accommodate English books only or all sorts of languages? Do you know?
Richard, the beauty of the online platform is that, and the reason why Print on Demand reached out to get a global presence is because I think we in South Africa, especially if we look at our country, we have 11 indigenous languages. And when we reach out to the international platform, we lead it with that, where we said that we especially could bring local South African content, especially to the expats and those guys that's already moved abroad. And I must say, we have a lot of requirements coming in, especially from the overseas market, looking for more than just English. So to answer your question on that, any book in any language is more than acceptable on the international platforms.
Okay, and another quick question from the chat. Zita says, I'm confused about Takealot's part in this. Do they do the distribution of all the books? Are they separate from the e-commerce websites, e.g. Amazon, that the book is uploaded to for customers to view?
Sorry, Richard, the question came from?
Zita.
Zita, apologies if I was not clear in that. So let me move back pre-COVID. So for me, is I wanted to create the largest Uber service for the publishing industry without investing in my own vehicles. That was my vision at that moment. And the way that I could potentially do that was by engaging with one, if not arguably the largest e-commerce store, Takealot in South Africa. So Takealot, as you know, they have a national footprint. I don't think there's an area that they do not cover. So the beauty of this is that you will sign a contract with Print on Demand, where Print on Demand will make available what the print cost of that book is. You, as the indie author, will then have an opportunity to then set your selling price. And the royalties get calculated. Print on Demand's cost versus Takealot's, let's call it a platform fee, and the delivery cost. And if those three gets added up and subtracted from your royalty, from your selling price, that becomes your royalty. But Takealot, we use Takealot for distribution and selling within the South African market. We are in contact and in discussions with Amazon. So that's definitely something that we would hopefully offer later this year. And as I said previously in my presentation, we're also busy speaking to two of the biggest book stores in South Africa to see if we potentially cannot get access to their online platform, e-commerce store, where we will then be able to upload some of the indie author's book. I think, again, let's talk about the South African context. I think the challenge is that the retail space in these bookstores becomes so small. So there's not enough space for every single person to have their books. But again, the e-commerce stores, their own website, there is where I see the opportunity lay. And also, if you have more than one title, it means that your entire long tail will now be able to go back into print. So even if you have published a book 10 years ago and you think that you're not going to sell more than 100 books, you now can potentially take that book, reload it back into the distribution network, and potentially can get sales out of that.
Okay, Kaylin asks a number of questions, but honestly, just looking over them now, I think that you've already answered in large part her questions. So I want to pick up on a question that Bonnie asked, and Tertius, if you don't mind, I'd like to answer this myself.
Okay.
Because she asks, what is the difference between a vanity publisher and a self or an indie publisher? And I hope that my answer also responds to Mari's question. Now, Bonnie, a generation or more ago, a writer who failed to find a publisher willing to publish their book would sometimes decide to print it themselves. And very often these were unwise decisions because the books were badly written and they were dismissed, generally speaking, as vanity projects. Okay, they were simply serving the vanity of the author. But over the last 20 years or so, as technology developed and the use of the internet became practically universal, authors decided to publish either digitally or hard copy formats, or both, their own work. And instead of earning 10 or 12% royalties, they found they could enjoy substantially higher revenues. In the case of digital sales, they can earn up to 90% of the price of each book sold. But they also discovered that in order to make those sales, they needed to learn the skills of marketing and running a business. They discovered that if their books were poorly written, then however good their marketing was, they were still unable to make much money. So as Tertius pointed out, 2.2 ISBN numbers were issued 2.2 million ISBN numbers were registered last year. Amazon on its own published 1.5 million books. Now, most of these are not worth reading, frankly. They will never make many sales, and they will soon be forgotten. To be fair, a lot of them are not meant to be bestsellers. They were printed for friends and family, and that's fine. But a small proportion of this flood of books is well written. The characters are engaging, and the stories are compelling. But even so, unless you learn how to market them, they still won't make you money. These books, though, are not the product of vanity publishing. They are making real inroads on territory previously occupied by traditional publishers. And how successful have these books been? Well, many of them have been extremely successful, where the authors now earn 6- and 7-figure, and I'm not talking rands, I'm talking dollars or pounds, sums every year. You might know of the case of Brandon Sanderson, who released one of his fantasy sci-fi blockbusters and made sales from that one book of over $50 million. So it's possible. And that's all I have to say about vanity publishing versus indie publishing. Okay, next question, very short one. Tracy asks whether your reach extends into Zimbabwe. Do you have a Zimbabwe partner who prints there?
So Tracy, at this moment, believe it or not, majority of the work that we distribute into Zimbabwe is printed in our Cape Town office. And look here, we've managed to get some good courier prices with one or two of the major freighting companies. So again, there I would suggest that you get in touch with my team. Let's see what we could potentially do for you. But I am looking at hopefully next year establish a print company in Africa where we would assist more into Africa distribution. I think the biggest challenge for me now is just where in Africa would be the best place to do that. So I have some options to look at, but for now, Zimbabwe, we produce in Cape Town and we freight it up to Zimbabwe.
Okay, so Monica and Jax ask two questions that are related. Monica says, how do you integrate with the British print-on-demand company BookVault or Ingram Spark and all the online retail outlets? Okay, so you've dealt with this, but it's maybe worth talking about that again around. And Jack says, we were planning, she says, to work through Ingram Sparks in terms of getting hard copies of books into bookstores locally and globally. Are they part of the print-on-demand picture?
So just to quickly answer the question regarding Ingram Spark. So the international platform that I'm referring to, Ingram Spark is one of them. So we are their print partner in Africa. So we assist them with titles that's loaded in the European American market. And we make it available in South Africa through the major e-commerce stores. We then produce it locally and distribute it. But also we use their platform to distribute some South African content globally again. BookVault is an integration that we are currently busy with. And the beauty about BookVault is that their variety of finishing products is vastly more than Ingram. So they offer spiral binding, saddle stitch binding, all of those. But yes, definitely both of those platforms is who we are engaged with. And then also the likes of Amazon, we are also doing international distribution through Amazon also.
Okay, that's great. And finally, a couple of little questions before I ask you to put your promotion code on the screen. Bonnie asks another question. Can you talk more about what editing you do or what editing services you can provide?
So Bonnie, we offer anything from normal editing to line editing. So again, there I'm very cautious, and that's a discussion that we would rather have with the individual to understand what their needs are. Take it in the spirit that I'm going to say it, but as soon as you start doing line editing, the opportunity is there where one could potentially change the voice that the story has been written in. But we do, like I say, your normal word editing. We also go more in depth. We also offer ghostwriting services also. But the ghostwriters that we've used in the past, it's an expensive exercise, just to mention that. But all of this comes down to an exploratory or let's call it a meet session for 15 minutes to really understand what the indie author is looking for and potentially how best can we advise them on next steps. And if there's something in that we would suggest maybe better ways of looking at it, we would always advise according to that. I hope that answers your question, Bonnie.
I'm sure it does. We have a question from Florida, not in Gauteng, but in the United States. Do you have a distribution or printing partner company in the USA?
Yeah, so Lauren, again, you're more than welcome to work through us. We use exactly the same platform. So if we publish your book onto a distribution network in South Africa, it automatically gets global exposure to over 40,000 e-commerce and libraries. However, if you want to deal with someone more in Florida, you can deal with Ingram Spark. They are based in America and the UK also. So you're more than welcome just to reach out to them directly or through us. You get exactly the same result.
Okay, and I think that's all we have time for now. So I'm going to thank, before I ask you to put that promotion code up, Tertius, I want to thank you very much indeed for answering all these questions. And for everyone who's been here, we had well over 100 people together today, which is very gratifying. Thank you for signing up. Thank you for coming. We will be sending you links to a video of the recording of the webinar. And we will see you next time. So Tertius, would you like to wrap up with your promotion code?
Lovely. Richard, again from my side, to you and your team and to everyone on the webinar tonight, thank you for joining. I hope that there was value in this. Please do reach out to us, company printondemand.co.za, or you could potentially just phone through 021 951 1464, and you can ask for any of the customer services representatives, or I'm even happy to assist wherever I can if you ask for me directly. And then Richard, promotion code as promised. I just quickly want to put it here. So the promotion code that I'm going to share with you guys now is something that we've put together for the first 50 or indie authors got their manuscript ready. They can do potentially a free upload onto Takealot, and this will also give them 1 full year of distribution on the network. So there's the promotion code, writing POD, that will give them a 640 Rand discount. So whenever you log into that URL, and maybe let me just go back to that previous slide. If you log into that bookofone.online/login, as soon as you sign the contract, you'll go to the next step will be the basket and pay options. You can then just use that promotion code.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks again, Tertius. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Lovely. Thank you, guys. All the best.